We're going to talk today to Georgia Boy, and Georgia Boy has fought in street beefs, and he has a story to tell, and we're here to tell it. So, thank you for coming on. Thank you for participating, and we're just going to jump right into it. Okay, so if you would kind of give me a little bit of background on how you grew up and how things began for you.
Right. Yeah, my name is Georgia Boy. I'm raised in Georgia and everything, born in Haiti. I started off, I came down here since I was around 10 years old. My, grandmother was down here in Georgia, like Chamblee, and whatchamacallit, they migrated down here to Stone Mountain. So, but, my family came down here and everything to, get a better life, because Haiti was, one of the worst countries in, the world and everything. How I, started off at fighting and everything. I not gonna lie, I was an angry kid and everything. I was angry. I had anger issues and I was kind of mad at, the world. I was mad at everybody. And, my who inspired me to really, really fight was my mother. And my mother was saying, if you have anger in this, why not put it into a sport? And
Right.
it really, kind of got me. I'm not gonna lie, it kind of got me like nervous at first because I said to myself, like, man, what if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not good enough?
Right.
And it kind of led to me being rebellious and everything at a young age. I was not gonna lie, I was very rebellious.
Mm-hmm.
And until I hit a young age at like 19 and 20, that's when I started boxing and wrestling. I got incarcerated at 20 years old. I was sentenced when I was 21. They sentenced me to 4 years because I was caught with a gun.
Uh-huh.
And the gun was really hot. So during my sentence and everything, I was working out angry. Still, I was still angry, and I was working out, wasting my time. But in my third year that I got transferred to prison and everything, I got transferred to Phillips State Prison in Beaufort, Georgia. Um, older guy, I'm not gonna forget his name. Shout out Mugsby. His name is Mugsby.
Right.
Mugsby, told me, and I will never forget this. He said, you're angry and something has angered you and everything. Are you gonna allow this anger to keep following your path or keep, breaking in your spirit, or are you gonna use this anger in a form of a good way? And
Right.
he recommended me to boxing, recommended me into, fighting. And how I got interested in street beefs and everything. Some guys were in prison and everything. They had phones and videos and everything, and they showed the street beef scrap yards. Shout out to Scarface, shout out to Man in the Mirror. Shout out Tank and everybody, 619. I seen their videos and the guys were just telling me, if you out, if you're a real, fighting and out here, if you out here fighting and everything, big gangster out here, you could fight some bigger competition. Street Beef got big competition, fighters, everything. So, man, I when I got out, I'm not gonna lie, I was street fighting. I was street fighting, going into basement cages.
Oh yeah.
I started off at a 10-5 record, won 10 fights and lost 5 fights. And what really made me just think, after that time that I was getting my life, I was getting my life together and everything, job. Sorry about that. I got dogs. getting my job and what you call it, my GED and everything, I, went to Vegas and said, "Hey, let me start my new life and everything. I got my girlfriend and everything. I got, dogs. I got a new life. I achieved a lot and everything. So why not come to Las Vegas?" And I started out seeing, guys like, bigger than me. I'm 5'9" and I weigh 195. So I see bigger guys and I'm just over here like, these guys come from like street background, gang background and everything.
Yeah.
Most of these fighters have a similar story just like me. So why not I just, join in and everything? After, I was at the time drinking much and everything. I was, alcoholic and everything. I got involved in, Street Beats West Coast. Lost two of my matches and everything, due to me, drinking a lot and, not taking my training serious and slacking off. But, you know,
So let me interrupt you for a second. So you had that journey. How did you just how did you survive prison? How did you make it through those 4 years? Like, what was that like being inside, dealing with the politics of prison and all that? Because I'm pretty familiar with that kind of stuff.
man, I'm not gonna lie to you. When I was young at first and everything, I was pretty scared. I was more of like, a little fish around sharks.
Right,
Octopus is more, I wasn't much, built and everything. I was more of a, chubby fat guy and everything. And I was just looking at my head like, dang, I'm in, a prison with murderers, killers,
right,
um, people that done robbed, people that done scammed, people that done did serious crimes. And
right.
me, I, get caught in the, wrong place at the wrong time with a firearm. And a lot of people kind of have their, I guess, problems what goes on in the, prison and everything. I'm not gonna lie. The prison that I went to and everything, we had, many inmates had died, many inmates had, some were free. But the best advice that, I learned in prison was gain as much knowledge, learn from my mistakes, and do not go back ever again.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna say that, prison's all bad and everything like how it is, how like, media is, but because there are some good people in prison. Not everybody in there is a criminal. Some were there at the wrong place at the wrong time, or they just made wrong decisions, or they let their anger get the best of them. And, as humans, we all make mistakes and we're all not perfect. And, I don't know if a lot of people are religious and everything, but what really kept me alive was God and,
yeah,
my contact with, my mother and contact with my girlfriend and contact with, people who supported me and everything. And,
right.
at one point of my life and everything, I was at a I was at a decision making. I was at a what you might call a point where I had to decide: am I going to be like this forever, or do I want to change?
Yeah, and that's kind of like leading me into my next question. What was your turning point? What made you want to not do this for the rest of your life? What broke that cycle?
Um, what really broke the cycle was actually seeing my best friend. Was actually seeing my best friend die. R.I.B. Shaquille. My friend Shaquille died. He what got shot in front of me in a drive-by in Central Drive. Um, this was happening when I was coming out of high school,
Uh,
and what also made me want to steer away from that was I kept seeing the injustice in the prisons.
right.
It treated us. One inmate would die from being too overheated. You
Hmm.
know,
Right.
a inmate would, get stabbed or die because of, disrespect or,
Yeah.
gang violence. Um, and when you start seeing that, you don't get scared. You just start thinking in your head, is this what I really want? Is this what
Right.
I really want for the rest of my life? Is this what, you know? And I didn't want that for myself because I know a lot of people, love and supported me. And I know there's, opportunities out. And when I seen that video of, Street Beats videos and everything, and stories like Scarface, story like Tank, man, they, kind of like inspired me, not to sound kind of, touchy or anything, but
Yeah,
they
yeah.
really did inspire me. So.
So, so what do you think that street beefs, the to be able to go someplace and channel your anger, or just get that testosterone filled, just want to hit something.
Oh
What
yeah.
do you, what do you think that does, and how that helps people?
Oh man, you want to know how I feel? How it really helps people? I feel like it helps people with anger issues, people who been traumatized, people who actually been through a lot of stuff and everything that have been different stories and everything. Because Street Beast is not only a fight organization, but I feel like it's a community of people with different stories and people who motivate you. I've seen OGs motivated me, and I've seen a lot of fighters come from ground up and everything. They turned, they was fighting in the ring and then they turned to pro. What made me like them, what made me like Street Beast at the time, I'm not gonna lie, was the intensity.
Yeah.
And everything. And I really do recommend that a lot of people who want to join or who really is interested, this is the organization that you will want to join. Street Beats, they are very helpful. They are really nice people. They look out for us, and they really, if you're wanting to be pro and everything, they are really there to help promote. They are really there to help support you, do everything, take. So.
So, could you describe to me what it's like to go to an event, and what you get at, what's the experience like of being there in person?
Well, my experience, I'm not gonna lie, my first experience, I was pretty nervous. I'm not gonna lie. I thought at first I got knocked out. I thought I was gonna get knocked out and everything because I was never skilled. I was never skilled. In fact, I was still I was still fighting at the time, street fighting at the time and everything, learning how to fight a little bit. And my first fight, I lost because I was cramping and everything, health issues, um, me drinking a lot and everything, me, doing so many, drugs. Um, but after a while, after my third fight of winning by a draw, it actually was a moment of me building up, and it actually, like, it was the push that I needed. Man, it's kind of hard to explain. It's like the push that I needed. It brought up a lot of people that, that actually supported me, a lot of people that's coming from different, states, including my state. A lot of people from my state, was showing me love, and they were saying, you're the first, guy from Georgia to ever, fight and speak about trying to, go against gun violence, fight off addiction and everything. Cause it's a lot of, black guys down here, a lot of guys, young, especially, my age, around 27, are younger and everything. They're dying from gang violence,
Right.
overdosing. And, and that was led up to me and everything, that I didn't want to become another victim and, have my mom cry in my own casket, you know. So it made a powerful turn. It made a powerful turn to me, brother.
So, whenever you came out, what was the transition or feeling your first like 24 hours out, your first week out? How did you make that transition to coming home?
Well, first I was when I was losing at first, when I lost my match and everything, I kind of was angry at first. I was disappointed at myself, but when Tank, Tiny Tank talked to me, 619 talked to me, and OG Darkness talked to me, and every OG was telling me and everything. At first I wanted to quit, but all of them were saying, most of the greatest fighters, they don't never want to give up and everything. They never gave up. Some of them had lost. Most of the, greatest athletes, they will have one loss or one, everything. And what actually, you know, brought up more of my transition, build up my transition, was never giving up, was actually looking at people, just seeing them not give up. Seeing street beast fighters just, going back in the ring, just fighting until they get a win, and they just keep going and going. And man, that it it really inspired me, man. And I recommend, like I said, I recommend enough people to come on Street Beast. You know, just come. These people really love you. There's this organization. It's a community. They are willing to help.
So
So
what do you think, if you could go back and talk to your 20-year-old self, what would you tell your 20-year-old self now?
I tell my 20-year-old self, man, don't do this. It ain't worth it. And you got so much going. You got so much youth and so much going on for yourself and everything. There's so many opportunities out here that you don't want to waste your youth. And I want to give this advice to, younger guys, that's in their 20s and everything, older guys and everything. Don't waste your youth. Don't waste your time.
Right.
There's opportunities out here, you know, women, money, drugs and everything, it's all going to be there, man. Liquor, money, all this, and it's all going to be there. Having fun and everything. It's always going to be there, but the best feeling is when you achieve something. And the best feeling that I had was going into that ring of Street Beefs and actually having an organization that actually would help me.
Yeah, I always tell people you got to know what your why is in life. Why do you get up out of bed and do whatever you do in life? You got to understand what your why is and go chase it.
Right.
So go ahead.
And what I tell a lot of people is, especially my age group and everything, is that decisions and everything, one decision can actually change your life.
Yes.
Um, if you make the wrong decision, you may never know what the consequence is. You may never know what you'll be hit with. And, learning about, Scarface's, story, and learned about, my story, it was, different similarities and everything. And, you know, it's, I really congratulate myself, and I'm really kind of proud of myself because, like I said, at a young age and everything, I would have probably been in prison, still would have been in prison or dead.
Yeah.
But Street Beasts, they really saved me. They really did save me, to be honest with you. So,
Well, I always say everybody's a 30-second decision away from going to prison or doing something that's just they can't take back. So you always have to think about that when you're in the heat of the moment. What does this decision look like 6 months from now? You know, and if you live your life that way, you'll make better decisions.
right.
So if I could ask you what you want your legacy to be, what would it be?
Well, my legacy, that's a big one and everything. Well, as of now and everything, I'm just letting the road see what my road is and everything. I'm just training and getting myself better and everything. But what I really just want to achieve and everything, what I really want my legacy to be is to, show that anything is possible. Anything is possible. A kid from Haiti that had no lick of knowledge of English, no nothing in math or anything, no knowledge of fighting and everything. I want to show people that one kid can overcome anything if he just put his mind to it, his strength to it, and his time to it. How you can start off small and you can come up big. How Michael Jordan would never, there are stories like Michael Jordan never made the team, but he became the greatest,
Right.
one of the greatest basketball players. How, what you call it, how Jackson 5 and everything, how their albums, some of their albums did not make it, but they're actually one of the top best old school groups.
Right.
So it's when you start off small and everything, you got to crawl before you walk. And once you crawling before you walk, you can drive. And once you driving, you fly in a plane.
Right. Right. Exactly. I love that. So, you know, in closing, do you have any other thoughts that you want to get out there? Because I think that when people tell their stories and people can identify, you might find that one person that needed to hear what you had to say, and it might save that person. So that's why it's so important for me to get these stories out so that somebody can look at you and say, "Hey,
You're right.
I'm going through the same thing, and I believe if he can do it, I can do it."
Right. That's what me. That's, coming from king to another king. And black man from another black man and everything. And, that's why I wanted to do this interview, not just because of me, not just for no clout, popularity or anything and all that, just to spread my message, foreigners and other black men and other men who are dealing with addiction and, incarcerated, you know, just, my message, you can beat it. It's never the end of the world. There's always opportunities. There's always better stuff to do. And me growing up, me getting older and wiser, I just look back and I just tell myself, like, wow, I really made a bad decision, but how I changed it and how I'm turning my life around, it's really coming up together.
Yeah, love that. Because I look at life as a book, and you're the author, and you get to write your own story. Other people can
Right,
write your story because it's yours.
right, right.
And you've inspired me, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And you know, I wish you nothing but the best, and God bless you. And um,
Thank you,
you know,
Mr. Jackson. God bless you too, man. I'm really thankful to have this interview and everything. Tell you, Cam, I'm coming back to the yard, you guys, soon. My match coming around the 31st. Not
okay,
just wish me luck and everything. I'm still new to the combat world, man, and still new to street beef. So I'm coming around, man.
and hopefully I'll get to meet you in person. Okay.
Man, you too, man. I'm definitely honored to see you. See you.
All right. So just always remember, everybody, stay on the other side.
Hey, rise. Stay on the other side, man. Anything is possible. If that opportunity is right there in front of your face, please take it. Take it. Cause you may never see that opportunity again.
That's right. Until next time, remember,
All
stay on
right,
the other
man.
side.